It's Colm Tóibín in Dublin, and I'm sending greetings to Romanian readers. When I think of Romania, I think of Bucharest, and when I think of Bucharest, I think of a restaurant, or a beautiful restaurant called Cadoul Humanitas, which I spent many happy times in and would like to be in now, tonight. I've just published a novel called The Magician, which is about the life of Thomas Mann. It's, of course, the life of the first half of the 20th century, the life when so many ordinary lives were destroyed, disturbed, or annihilated by history, by forces utterly beyond their control, and where domestic life really was something that was constantly under threat by international affairs. Thomas Mann, in a way, he would have gone through his life quite happily, I think, without being involved or engaged or even interested in politics. He was interested, of course, in culture. He was interested particularly in German culture. He was a man who changed a great deal because in the First World War he was a German nationalist and almost like at times a sort of Prussian militarist. But then when the First World War ended, like a lot of people, he saw that that militarism had led to death. It hadn't led to glory. And he changed. And he became, I suppose, slowly a sort of fierce democrat and an implacable enemy of Hitler. My story, the story of the novel, isn't really a story about history. It's a story about how domestic life or ordinary life can be affected or destroyed by history. But it's also, I think, more than anything, the story of a marriage and the story of a family. So the marriage is to this wonderful woman called Katia Pringsheim from an assimilated Jewish family in Munich, great Bohemians, very rich. She was one of the first women to study science at a German university. She married him when she was very young, and they had 6 children, despite the fact that his main erotic interest was homosexual. He's very hard to pin down. You know, his politics are hard to pin down, his sexuality is hard to pin down, but he was someone who just simply, the one thing we know about him is that he went every morning and he worked for 4 hours and he wrote book after book, that was his, in a way, perhaps his real life, not his secret life. His secret life was his erotic life. But when he went out from his study into the domestic space, they paid no attention to him sometimes. They were so busy arguing. His daughter Erica, his son Klaus, his son Golo, his son Michael, his daughter Monica and his daughter Elizabeth, all of them very different people, but all of them opinionated, all of them at the dinner table, so busy arguing with each other that the magician, the father, remained somehow a sort of ghost in his own life. They eventually went to America in 1938, they went to Princeton in 1941, they went to California, and they lived the war years in California, coming back to Germany, or sorry, not to Germany, but to a German-speaking country in 1952. They left America and came to live in Switzerland, and he died in 1955. In a way, it's the story of how a life like his, it can be so affected by public things, but that the private things perhaps are sometimes even more memorable, that despite the fact that these large historical events are occurring, for Thomas Mann, the glimpsing of a very beautiful young man, or an argument with the family, or something Katia did or said, or even the death of his brother Heinrich, or the death of his mother, or the death of his son Klaus, that these things were of immense emotional importance to him. So in a way, the novel form is, I suppose, what it's most brilliant at is actually letting you see what someone is thinking and feeling, and then letting you see what they say, the big distance between showing feelings and having feelings, by having thoughts and then not expressing them, saying something else. So the novel dramatizes that gap between the inner self, the outer person. I think Thomas Mann, more than anyone we know, because we have so much information about him, was the distance, the gap between his, I suppose, his self, his inner fellow, and the very stiff, scholarly novelist, the winner of the Nobel Prize. I think the gap is quite enormous, and in my novel I can dramatise that gap. So I send you all greetings, and the next time we meet, let it be in Cadoul Humanitas, or you probably know somewhere better. If so, I would love to know where that is. So thank you very much. Thank you.